Hola clase. Hello class. Soy Señor Mark. I'm Mark, your Spanish teacher, and I'm here today to talk to you about ways you can be learning on your own. If, for any reasons, you find yourself at home with a lot of time and you might want to study Spanish during that time, I wanted to tell you about some great opportunities to do so, some great resources. You may have heard of some of them, but it's always good to have new ways to learn. Really the best way is by talking to other people. So if you have people you're with or you can communicate with and just try to practice your Spanish at whatever level you are, you can try that and you can use some of these tools to help you do it. So one, many of you know about DuoLingo, that really cool app. It's on your phone, has a cute little owl, little characters that teach you Spanish in easy ways. So it's written, it's verbal, it goes step by step, starts with the easiest things and works your way up as you go through different levels. You can have it give you reminders to see how many days you can have a streak going. You can compete with other people, which makes it fun. So DuoLingo is just a really fun way to build up on your basic Spanish vocabulary and fluency. If you want to look on YouTube, I don't have too many videos, you can look at mine, but I really do recommend Señor Jordan. If you haven't seen him, he has really clever ways of teaching in a practical way, a fun way, just to help you develop your basic Spanish. If you like listening to podcasts, there are some good ways that you can listen. It helps your listening skills and your vocabulary, and it's fun too. There's a podcast called El Washington Post, which I hadn't heard about. One of my students told me and I checked it out, and it's really a great way to hear some Spanish, talk about what's going on in the news currently. If that's a little too fast for you, there's something called News in Slow Spanish that has a podcast. It has some free access and it has some premium access if you're really interested in it. Set at a pace that is less intimidating and it helps you pick up on your fluency in hearing Spanish. If you like reading, there's some free sources. So like here in Austin and a lot of places you can get free, gratis, the newspaper in Spanish. El Mundo, which means the world, is based in San Antonio and Austin, and it has a lot of headlines, has a lot of lawyer advertisements, so you can learn about lesiones and abogados, injury lawyers. If you want more national news, the New York Times has a version in Spanish. Some of that is behind the paywall, but if you pay, you can get a lot of news in Spanish with the New York Times. It's really good and can be a lot of fun to watch movies or other productions in Spanish. And then you can even set up the subtitles, and sometimes you can get them set so, like say you watch Univision in Spanish, you might be able to get the English subtitles set up, or even watching the Spanish subtitles helps you catch more vocabulary. There's a really great show out on Netflix right now about Guatemala that talks about the history, the beauty. It's about a 45-minute show. It's just a great show on Guatemala. It's in Spanish and it has subtitles, so it's a great way to learn. You can really do that with any movies you like. Go choose the Spanish language and or Spanish subtitles. You can learn a lot. It's really also fun to learn based on songs, las canciones. So whatever type of music you like, you can get your songs on Spotify or YouTube or wherever you're comfortable getting your songs. And then you can also Google the lyrics. And then when the song is playing, you can follow along with the Google lyrics. Some of them have the lyrics in Spanish and English nearby, which makes it really easy. If not, you can search to see what the lyrics in Spanish mean. That really helps you learn, enjoy some songs, gives you some fluency. I have to tell you a funny story. There was this song called Despacito that was really popular a couple years ago, and they talked about, there was a verse that tú eres el metal y yo soy el imán, and so it's basically saying, you're the metal and I'm the magnet, and I didn't know what imán meant, so I looked it up. And then a few months later, I was working with someone in a volunteer area where they were trying to train doctors about what to do if, or actually nurses, about what to do if a child would swallow a magnet. And he couldn't think of the word for magnet. And I remembered iman right away. And the whole crowd said, oh, iman, iman. And the guy thought I really knew Spanish, which is nice, but it happened to be because I really liked a song that had that vocabulary in it. So don't underestimate. Find songs you like, learn the words, learn in English and Spanish. And then the last thing I have on there, I don't know if you can read Pig Latin, that's not a language we're studying, but I don't want to put Google Translate on anything associated with Spanish teaching because a lot of teachers don't like students to use Google. I actually think it's really helpful, especially if you're trying to figure out what to say or if you're trying to figure out what something means. Just remember that when you go into Google, it's good to put the whole sentence because Google uses artificial intelligence to see what translations are used all throughout the internet and in formal translated documents. So if you give more context, for example, if you use a word like paint, you don't know if you mean the verb to paint or the noun paint. So if you put it in a sentence like, I want to paint the wall on my house, the sentence is much more likely to come up with a good translation in Google Translate. Aside from just on the internet, you can get an app that's called Google Translate that does some really cool things. If you get it and mess around with it, you choose Spanish and you choose English. Of course, it'll just let you put in words and tell you, or sentences, and tell you how to translate it. But then there's also a feature where you can click conversation and you can talk to it in English and it'll repeat to you what you just said in Spanish. So you could say, hello, I am from Texas. And it'll say, you say that into Google Translate and it'll repeat back at you, hola, yo soy de Texas. And it's really a cool thing. It can be a lot of fun and a fun way to study Spanish. Another really cool thing about it is there's a camera feature that if you hold it up to say El Mundo, it'll show you exactly what the sentences say in English. So that's a lot of fun to do, a fun way to learn your Spanish. Side note, it's really cool with Chinese. So when you go to a Chinese restaurant and you have no idea what the characters say, Google Translate can allow you to use the camera and then it suddenly tells you what it means in English. It's just mind-boggling. So those are just some of the many ways that on your own you can really learn Spanish. You can learn some resources. If you have other thoughts, you could put them in the comments, send them back to me and let me know. I'd be happy to add some. And I'll add some to the comments too if I think of others. So thank you, class. Gracias, clase. Keep studying. Anda estudiando. And we'll see you soon. Nos vemos.